and welcome to KennyRoy.com. I'm Kenny Roy. This is the Ask Video Mail for the week of February 4th, 2013. Welcome to the site to all you new members, and welcome back to the old members. The Ask Video Mail is your chance to get your question in character animation or performance answered in a video just like this one, but I need your question if I'm going to answer it, so please send your question to webmaster@kennyroy.com. I go through all the questions, I answer the ones that I think will help the most people. There's no such thing as a stupid question, and it is the best way to get the most out of your subscription. That's the intro, that's the opening, and like I said last week, I am doing a contest. If you record a video of yourself doing the intro to KennyRoy.com, you can win a free copy of How to Cheat in Maya 2013. Yes, I'm giving away 2 free copies to the 2 best videos of people recording the intro. And for the whole month of February, you can send in your video. I haven't received any yet. It's very early, of course. It's only the 4th. But if you send it in right now, you will be the first one, and if I don't get any others, boom, you get your free copy of How to Cheat in Maya 2013. So that goes for the entire month of February. Just send in a video, doesn't matter how long it is, just do your best, and I can't wait to see them. Rock on with that. The Kickstarter backer webcast. I promised a webcast with a really special guest all the way last year in April when I was doing my Kickstarter, and that is this Friday the 15th of February. So a week from sorry, I should have said this Friday. A week from this Friday, the 15th of February here on KennyRoy.com. It's going to be somewhere around 2 or 3 p.m. It's going to go for an hour, and it is with the amazing Joe Cassander. Joe is an animator, an animation director, a writer. He has an encyclopedic knowledge of film and filmmaking. He's an amazing guy to talk to, and I'm just going to be picking his brain here and opening it up for a few questions at the end on KennyRoy.com. So stay tuned. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter. Follow me on LinkedIn, Google+. Anyone use those? I don't know. Just make sure that you're paying attention so you don't miss that webcast. It's going to be here on KennyRoy.com, and it's going to be with Joe Cassander. So look out for that stuff. Thank you for being patient with that, by the way. Just had to figure out availability, and sometimes it takes a very long time. So that's awesome. I know I keep on teasing you guys with some big announcements, and they are coming. I promise the big announcements are coming. It just, I always have to make sure that my ducks are in a row. I can't announce something and then like, it doesn't happen. So just a little bit more patience, but there's some really big things coming here for the site and for you guys. I know you're going to enjoy them. But we're doing a video mail now, so let's jump into the question. It's a good one. I love the balance of technical and creative. So, so check out this question. All right, great question. Like I said, I love the balance of technical and creative. Now, I've worked on some pretty intense feature animations that have, or creature features that have some pretty dynamic motion in them. And the problem is that once you get a little bit kind of like into a shot, you get married to an axis. And this animator has pointed that out and is asking for some workflow tips in order to get out of that. And unfortunately, really the only thing that you can do on most shots that have either a single axis that the character is working on that is not like along a normal X and Z axis, and also scenes that have like random motion. There's sort of only like one thing you can do. In the first example, if let's say you have a character and they are walking, you have a set that's like a square set, and they walk diagonally. Excuse me, oh my goodness. Maybe I should drink something. Hope I don't have hiccups. I don't think I've ever had hiccups on a video mail. That would be exciting. Okay. Square room, and a guy walks diagonally across it. If it's one shot where the guy's just crossing the room, then you normally can get away with aligning your character's z-axis with the main motion, okay? So it's not, that main controller is not just for positioning your character. It's not just for putting him in place, and then you take the hips and the feet and the arms and just start like kind of like turning and lining him up, and then start moving him. Because this animator pointed out that it gets very difficult if you're moving someone on two axes to sort out two different axes. Like Z is supposed to be forward and X is supposed to be side to side, right? So all of a sudden, if they're walking forward and you have Z and X, and you're trying to get like like a nice either side to side motion, or you're trying to really make sure that their Z and X progress, because it's a diagonal, is nice and even, or whatever, very, very hard visually to get that working, okay? So normally what you want to do is look at your scene, assess your scene, make sure that your character's z-axis is aligned with the main motion, okay? The next thing, or the next example, the other example I said, which was when there's random motion, there's pretty much only one thing you can do as well. So I normally like to take everything to a higher level workflow approach, but since there's only kind of one solution for all of these, I just have to kind of just to tell you how it is. When it's random motion, to determine the footfalls is almost like you can get extremely married into bad footfalls for the kind of performance that you want. So a common practice is for when someone is like running over here, then turning, and then going over here and whatever, just hide the legs. Key the whole body. Basically, just from the hips upwards. If you can hide the legs, it's really, really good. Some rigs don't allow you to hide the legs. Hopefully, if you're working with a rig like Morpheus or Bishop from AM, pretty much all of the really super high-end rigs have a tin can or a sectioned or a segmented, it depends on what they call it, but at Weta we call it tin can model, which looks like the Tin Woodsman, and you can hide certain sections just because the geometry is there. After you're done that, then you can basically kind of go back in and make adjustments visually in panel for the footfalls that are kind of like naturally like coming about. You place a foot and then you're like, okay, well, if this is where his foot is placed, then let's, for the next 5 frames, let's have those hips, let's have him rotate over that hip, it rises, get a little bit of Y action on the body, and so on and so forth. So you move forward like that. Okay. There was a scene in King Kong where there was these animals. They're insects, but they had like, I think they had like 10 legs. I think they had 8 legs and 2 pinchers. I'm not sure. But I remember we got the creatures and I had time to test it for a week, and I did this scene where I took a plane and I extruded basically like 2 little mounds, and I had it walk up here and then go back down and come up here and then go towards camera. So it was just like these 3 movements, like up here, over here, and then right at camera. All right. And I remember I spent an entire day without even looking at the feet. I hit all the legs. I hit all the legs. I just had his body section and his pinchers, and I had what I wanted it to really feel like. Like he kind of like shuffles sideways up onto this thing, and then snaps and goes onto this one, and then comes right at you. Okay, so you can really get very far with the overall performance, because it's even with humans, not just insects, but even with humans, because body language is very, very, very heavily biased towards like hips upwards, right? I mean, you can kind of argue that the legs kind of determine the position of the hips. Like if someone's like this and they're looking at you, there's the kind of like vanilla body language. But if they're kind of like slouched like this and looking and like head tilted, right, so the legs are determining that my hips are kind of like lazy right now, but you can do this pose without the legs showing, is what I'm saying. And then from here up, like 90% of the body language is the rest. It's the slunken shoulders, it's the head kind of turned away from you, you know, not fully engaged, but kind of away from you, so you're picking up that I'm not really interested in what you're saying. Okay, so you can get very far with that. So those are the kind of the solutions to doing that. It just dawned on me, there is one more kind of workflow way that you could deal with the first one, which is when there is one axis that is off the normal, like the world axes that you're working on. So if you're going right diagonally between Z and X, you could use a layered approach. I would caution you to do a lot of testing with that and make sure that layers are supported in whatever you're doing. I don't think they're supported in game engines, for instance. Okay, I don't think they work the same in other 3D programs. So it's a little bit of a gamble depending on that to do all of your diagonal work. Okay. The last scenario. So I said, all right. So the three scenarios are basically, one is that there is basically one main axis of motion that is contrary to the world axes, and that you just point your master controller at that, and that will align your character's, you know, main channels accordingly. The second one was when there's like random motion, when the person's over here, then back over here, and whatever. It is a lot of visual work, and you can make it so that your footfalls don't destroy your poses by just getting rid of your feet, just posing the body language and really the main motions without looking at the feet. And then the third scenario is when there is a main axis, but there's a turn. And I've done this a couple times. And what you do is this. Let me show you. All right, so we have a Morpheus rig, okay? And so I'm just going to really quickly show you what I mean to do here. So, where are the controllers for... Oh, this is it. Okay, let me just turn off IK on all of these things and show you what I mean with, is this his spine? Which one is it? Okay. I got to do a little bit of testing. Okay, so let's say you have your character walking forward, right? And your character is walking forward till here and then doing one single major turn onto a basically, he's not doing a 90-degree turn, he's doing a diagonal turn, okay? So basically, let me show you, I'll draw a NURBS curve so you can see this, this progression, okay? So he's going from here to here to here, like that, okay? So here's the character's path. One of the problems with using the master controller is that the master controller has a point of origin or a pivot that doesn't quite work when your character has moved. So you can actually rotate the master controller on that point on the moment that the character makes the big turn. Now I would do this only if, and really seriously take this very seriously, okay? I would do this only if your character is doing a lot of kind of movements that take them very far, okay? So this is a good example, this scene. If this is his path that he has to like walk in this whole scene, this would be a good scene to do this in. And what you do is, you can do it two ways. One, I'm going to snap the pivot along the curve here, and then on this point, as the character approaches it, you'd key it on either side, and then rotate it so that the x-axis, or really, it's supposed to be Z, but I guess the rotation order is a little wonky here, is like that. And then you continue having this guy move along his z-axis like this, okay? Now, this would require you to do some cleanup. Why? Because your foot is going to be parented underneath your master controller, okay? So even if you have IK feet and you have a step right here, it's going to require you across these couple frames to do some cleanup. But a lot of people find that it is a lot easier to do that cleanup over those, like, depends on how fast the character's moving, of course, but it's easier to do that cleanup for some people over those like 5 to 10 frames than it is if you have a 250 frame shot where they walk diagonally this way and then diagonally this way, and it's like a 20-degree turn and like a 30-degree turn, and then you have a graph editor filled with like X and Z, like, you know, working it together. I find it easier to look at a graph editor that, or to edit, you know, 5 to 10 frames of animation, like on 1s and 2s, to make sure that my footfalls look like they're sticking. And you can do things like put like locators down and like snap your foot to that locator on every single frame. Let me show you how to do that. So I'll just quickly make this IK again. So let's say here's a locator. Let's say this is a frame where his foot is or the master controller is turning, right? So I can snap it right there. You know what I mean? And then I go to frame 11. Well, if this was, all right, so here's the turn. So it's turning, whoop, I can just set a key, snap it right here. It's turning more, snap it right here again. Oops, it doesn't want to snap. There we go. Right here, snap it again, right here. Okay, and now it's good. See, like over, well, I didn't set keys, but if you just snap it on every single frame, that's one thing that you can do. Okay, so there's little tricks to do that. The other way to do it, here's the other way to do it. Instead of using the pivot, you can actually create a locator and make the character turn. Basically using a constraint, and then you can do multiple turns. So here I'm going to have him go to the end right here, and then I'm going to create a locator right here. Okay, let's make it a little bit bigger so we can see what the heck is going on. All right, and then on this frame, just because it's easiest, let's make this 48 frames long. On this frame 24, I would constrain it, parent constraint, that master controller, okay? And then turn it on, key both. On the frame before, turn it off, okay? So that it can still do its rotation right here, because you can't have it moving when it is parent constrained, when the constraint's turned on. You can only move when the constraint's turned off, right? Okay. And then on this frame 24, rotate this guy again and have him, let's say, like straighten back out, for instance. And then I can have him move to here. So here are the two turns. This one is with the pivot of the master controller, and then this one is with a parent constraint. See that? Okay. So a lot of people find it's easier to edit those kinds of keys. I do, but again, you don't want to do that in the scene where the person's like, oh, I'm going to mess with this over here, and then like, oh really, oh no, okay, like just like crisscrossing a room. You don't want to do this. Much better to really just get everything working in one coordinate system, and just edit the animation, just be really on top of it. But this method will work if you have, and I've used this a lot. This method will work a lot, especially if you have like an A to B kind of shot, and those are defined as like where you get the direction where like character crosses scene and is like talking or something like that. Okay, really good question. I love those kind of questions, the good blend of technical and creative. It's a lot of fun to answer those, and I need more questions. I love getting your questions. If you are on the trial right now, you can still send in questions, and how awesome would that be? You are on your trial, excuse me, again. You're on your trial, and you get a video answering your question here on KennyRoy.com. I hope you do stick around if you're on the trial. Tell your friends. You get referral bonuses for every one of your friends that signs up. And I think that's just about it. Thanks again. Send your questions to webmaster@kennyroy.com. Good luck with your animation. And as always, rock on.